Have you ever wondered where humanity truly began? Not the way they teach in modern classrooms, not the oversimplified stories of migration, but the origins buried in ancient texts, inscribed on weathered scrolls, passed down through generations, whispered in the pages of the Bible itself. Because within those pages lies a tale unlike any other. A tale of power, of civilization, of lineage that stretches across the sands of time. But here's the twist. It's a story that has been misrepresented, overlooked, and at times erased. The biblical origins of African civilizations are more profound than you've ever been told. They are written in prophecy, in genealogy, in the foundations of human history. This is not just about the past. It's about understanding who we are today. Imagine the world right after the Great Flood. Chaos washing away the old world, leaving only one family to restart the human race. Noah, 3 sons, Shem, Japheth, and Ham. From these 3 men, every nation we know today was born. But one lineage, in particular, would birth some of the most powerful civilizations in history: Egypt, Nubia, Cush, Canaan. The sons of Ham, the bloodline that shaped kingdoms, built monuments, led revolutions, and yet, much of their story remains in the shadows. What if the Bible held the key to understanding their true place in history? Today, we are peeling back the layers of history. We are diving into the world of Cush, the African kingdom that once ruled Egypt. We are rediscovering the lost warriors of Put and the mighty pharaohs of Mizraim. We are following the footprints of the Canaanites, whose lands were at the heart of biblical prophecy. This isn't just about biblical history. This is about reclaiming the truth. So stay with us as we journey through time, unraveling the biblical origins of African civilizations, their impact, their legacy, and the undeniable truth that history has been waiting to tell. This is a journey you won't want to miss. The 3 sons of Noah, the blueprint of nations. The world as it once was, is no more. A catastrophic flood, swallowing cities, drowning civilizations, wiping the earth clean of corruption. A reset, a reckoning, and from the wreckage, only one family remains. Noah, a man chosen by God to preserve the human race. A man who built an ark, not just to survive, but to carry the future of humanity within its wooden frame. When the waters receded and the ark rested on dry land, Noah and his family stepped out into an empty world, a world waiting to be rebuilt. God gave them a command: be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. Genesis, chapter 9, verse 1. And so, from Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Japheth, and Ham, the great nations of the world would rise. But what happened next would shape the course of history in ways few could have predicted. Noah's sons were more than just survivors. They were the blueprint of human civilization, the architects of the nations that would one day dominate history. Shem, the father of the Semitic peoples, Hebrews, Arabs, Assyrians. From his line would come Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and ultimately, Jesus Christ. Japheth, the ancestor of Indo-European nations, the Greeks, the Romans, the Persians. His descendants would spread across the islands and coastlines of the world. Ham, the forefather of African and Canaanite civilizations, Egypt, Cush, the Philistines, the great empires of the Nile. But Ham's lineage wasn't just another branch of history. His descendants didn't just survive. They thrived. They built kingdoms that would stand for millennia. They forged cultures so powerful, so advanced, that even today, their legacies remain. And yet, their story has often been reduced to footnotes. The Bible tells us that Ham had 4 sons, each of them the patriarch of an empire: Cush, the father of the Nubian and Ethiopian people. His descendants built the kingdom of Cush, a civilization so powerful that it once conquered Egypt. Mizraim, the founder of ancient Egypt, the civilization that gave the world pyramids, hieroglyphics, and some of the greatest advancements in science and engineering. Put, the ancestor of the North African warriors, possibly the early Berbers and Libyans, who played key roles in military history. Canaan, the father of the Canaanites, the people who occupied the land promised to Israel. Cities like Jericho, Sidon, and Tyre all trace their roots back to Canaan's lineage. These names aren't just biblical references. They are the foundation stones of world history. Without the sons of Ham, there would be no Egypt, no Cushite dynasty, no Carthaginian traders sailing across the Mediterranean, no ancient cities of Canaan standing at the crossroads of civilization. Yet, for centuries, their significance has been downplayed, their contributions overlooked. But what if we told you that their story is one of the most extraordinary narratives in the Bible? A story of power, innovation, and survival. A story that connects Africa, the Middle East, and the biblical world in ways few truly understand. In the next chapter, we dive deeper into the kingdom of Cush, a forgotten empire that rivaled Egypt, ruled over pharaohs, and left behind mysteries still waiting to be uncovered. The Kingdom of Cush, the hidden African superpower for thousands of years, one civilization stood as a beacon of power in Africa. A kingdom so wealthy, so advanced, that even mighty Egypt once bowed before it. Yet, history has buried its name. Today, we uncover the forgotten empire of Cush, a kingdom that shaped the ancient world but was erased from many history books. This is not just another lost civilization. This is the story of the African superpower that once ruled the Nile. Long before the Roman Empire, before the rise of Greece, before even the first pharaohs of Egypt, there was Cush. Situated in what is now modern-day Sudan and Ethiopia, the kingdom of Cush flourished along the banks of the Nile River, controlling vast trade networks that stretched across Africa, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean. The Cushites were warriors, builders, and traders. Their land was rich in gold, ivory, and iron, making them one of the wealthiest civilizations of the ancient world. But wealth was only part of their power. The Cushites were also master strategists, known for their vast armies, elite archers, and naval forces that controlled trade routes along the Nile. Even Egypt, the great empire to the north, could not ignore their might. And in the Bible, the kingdom of Cush is not just mentioned. It plays a crucial role in shaping the world of the Old Testament. The name Cush appears multiple times in the Bible, often linked to power, resilience, and divine prophecy. In Isaiah, chapter 18, verses 1 through 2, Cush is described as a land of towering warriors who send ambassadors by sea, traveling in papyrus boats across the waters. In Jeremiah, chapter 13, verse 23, the prophet references the Cushites' distinct dark skin, showing how deeply their identity was recognized. In Numbers, chapter 12, verse 1, Moses' wife is described as a Cushite woman, evidence of the interwoven relationships between the Israelites and the Cushite people. But perhaps the most fascinating moment in history is when Cush ruled over Egypt itself. Did you know that one of the pharaohs of Egypt was actually a Cushite king? In the 8th century before Christ, a Cushite ruler named Pianki led his armies north, conquering Egypt and establishing the 25th dynasty, also known as the Cushite dynasty. For nearly a century, the pharaohs of Egypt were not Egyptian at all. They were rulers from Cush. They restored Egypt's temples, strengthened its armies, and brought stability to a land that had been divided by war. The most famous of these kings was Pharaoh Taharka, a warrior king mentioned in the Bible. In 2 Kings, chapter 19, verse 9, Taharka is referenced as the Ethiopian king who marched against the Assyrians to aid Israel during a time of war. In Isaiah, chapter 37, verse 9, he is called the king of Cush, recognized as a major power in world affairs. The Cushite pharaohs ruled with strength, wisdom, and vision. But their reign would not last forever. As the Assyrians grew stronger, the Cushite rulers were eventually forced to retreat back to their homeland. Yet, even after their rule in Egypt ended, Cush continued to thrive for over 1,000 years, outlasting many empires that once challenged them. The kingdom of Cush was not just another African civilization. It was a powerful empire that shaped history, ruled Egypt, influenced biblical events, and left behind secrets still being uncovered today. Even now, hidden beneath the sands of Sudan, lie the ruins of Cushite pyramids, more pyramids than exist in all of Egypt. Their legacy endures. But why has this story been forgotten? Why is Cush not taught as one of the greatest civilizations in history? Perhaps because history is written by those who remain. But today, we rewrite that history. And as we move forward, we will uncover even more about the mysteries of Africa's lost empires. In the next chapter, we journey to ancient Egypt, where another son of Ham, Mizraim, built a civilization that would become one of the most legendary in all of human history. Mizraim and the rise of ancient Egypt. For over 4,000 years, one civilization stood as a beacon of human achievement. A kingdom of towering pyramids, hidden tombs, and gods carved in stone. A land of mystery, magic, and power. So great that even the Bible could not ignore its influence. This is the story of Mizraim, the man whose descendants built ancient Egypt, the civilization that would shape the ancient world like no other. But Egypt was more than just an empire of wealth and wonder. It was a land of contradictions, a place of refuge, but also of oppression. A land that gave wisdom to the world, but clashed with the chosen people of God. And in this delicate balance between power and faith, Egypt would forever be tied to the biblical narrative. After the Great Flood, as Noah's sons spread across the earth, one of Ham's sons, Mizraim, traveled north, settling in the fertile lands along the Nile River. His name, in ancient texts, is directly translated as Egypt, marking him as the founder of one of the greatest civilizations in history. From his lineage came the great cities of Memphis and Thebes, the rise of the pharaohs, and the construction of the pyramids that still stand today. But Mizraim's legacy was not just one of architecture. It was one of science, culture, and empire building. The Egyptians were masters of mathematics and developed one of the first known writing systems, hieroglyphics. They built an empire that lasted for thousands of years, ruling vast territories beyond their borders. Their advanced medicine and engineering surpassed anything the world had ever seen. Yet, despite their brilliance, Egypt's greatest influence would not be in war or technology. It would be in their spiritual beliefs, a faith that would put them on a collision course with the Israelites. Egypt's presence in the Bible is undeniable. It is both a place of salvation and a place of suffering, a place of refuge. When famine struck Canaan, Abraham traveled to Egypt for survival. Genesis, chapter 12, verse 10. Centuries later, Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers, would rise to power in Egypt and save countless lives from starvation. Genesis, chapter 41. Even the infant Jesus was taken to Egypt by Mary and Joseph, escaping King Herod's wrath. Matthew, chapter 2, verses 13 through 15. A place of oppression. The most famous story of Egypt in the Bible is the Exodus, when Pharaoh enslaved the Israelites, forcing them into brutal labor. Exodus, chapter 1. For centuries, the Hebrews lived under Egyptian rule, building their temples and cities, until Moses, through divine intervention, led them to freedom. The 10 plagues, the parting of the Red Sea, and the fall of Pharaoh's army. Egypt became the setting for one of the most dramatic confrontations between man and God. But what was at the root of this conflict? It wasn't just about power. It was about faith. Egypt was a land of many gods, Osiris, Ra, Anubis, each controlling different aspects of life and death. The pharaoh himself was worshipped as a living god, chosen by the deities to rule the world. This belief system directly opposed the faith of the Israelites, who followed one God, Yahweh. And when Moses confronted Pharaoh, demanding the release of the Hebrews, it wasn't just a political rebellion. It was a spiritual war. Each of the 10 plagues was designed to defy an Egyptian god. The plague of darkness challenged Ra, the sun god. The plague of blood defied Hapi, the god of the Nile. The death of the firstborn proved that even Pharaoh, the divine ruler, was powerless before the true God. Egypt's entire belief system was shattered. But even after the Israelites left, Egypt remained one of the most influential cultures in the ancient world. Their knowledge shaped Greek and Roman civilizations. Their wisdom was sought by kings and scholars. Even today, their temples, their monuments, and their stories still capture our imagination. But one question remains. Egypt was a civilization built on science, knowledge, and gods of stone. The Israelites, by contrast, were a people guided by faith, prophecy, and an unseen God. One empire built pyramids to reach the heavens. The other followed a pillar of fire through the desert. But in the end, which path proved more powerful? And what can we learn from Egypt's rise and its fall? As we move forward, we turn our attention to Put, another son of Ham, whose warriors shaped the military history of North Africa, a lost legacy of fighters, mercenaries, and defenders of kingdoms. Their story is next. Stay with us. The past is far from finished. Put, the forgotten warriors of North Africa for centuries, they rode across the sands. Warriors feared on the battlefield, mercenaries sought by kings, a people whose name whispered through the pages of history. And yet, they have been all but forgotten. The descendants of Put, the fourth son of Ham, carved their legacy into the lands of North Africa, but their story has faded into obscurity. Who were these warriors? And how did they shape the fate of empires? While Cush ruled the south and Egypt dominated the Nile, Put's descendants settled in the coastal lands of North Africa, a region we now know as Libya, Algeria, and Tunisia. These lands, stretching along the Mediterranean coast, were strategic hubs of trade, warfare, and power struggles between the great empires of the ancient world. But unlike Egypt, which built monuments to its rulers, the people of Put built something different, a reputation as fearsome warriors. Their land became a breeding ground for mercenaries, fighters who would one day serve in the armies of Egypt, Persia, Carthage, and Rome. And the Bible does not ignore them. The descendants of Put are mentioned multiple times in the Bible, always in the context of warfare and military alliances. In Ezekiel, chapter 30, verse 5, Put is listed among Egypt's allies who would fall in battle. In Jeremiah, chapter 46, verse 9, Put's warriors are described as fierce fighters, alongside Cushite and Lydian soldiers. In Ezekiel, chapter 38, verse 5, Put is mentioned as part of a powerful military coalition that would rise in the last days. These references suggest that Put's people were not rulers, but fighters. Their destiny was not to build empires, but to shape them through warfare. As time passed, the warriors of Put became known as some of the most skilled fighters in the Mediterranean world. They served as mercenaries in Egypt, protecting Pharaoh's armies, hired swords in Carthage, fighting against the Romans, elite cavalry in Persia, riding into battle for the great kings of the East. When the great empires clashed, the soldiers of Put were there. They were the hidden force behind history's greatest wars, shifting the balance of power without ever claiming a throne of their own. But with time, their identity began to fade. As nations fell and new rulers rose, the warriors of Put disappeared into the sands of history. How could a people once so powerful become forgotten? Did they assimilate into other cultures, blending into the Berber tribes of North Africa? Did their warriors, once sought by kings, vanish into history with the fall of Rome? Or is their legacy still hidden beneath the sands, waiting to be rediscovered? One thing is certain: the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan did not just survive. They shaped the ancient world. And in our final chapter, we turn to Canaan, a land caught between prophecy, war, and divine judgment. Stay with us. The past is not yet finished. The unity and diversity of humanity borders, nations, divisions. For thousands of years, history has been written with lines in the sand, separating people by race, culture, and language. But what if those divisions were an illusion? What if the Bible, a book often used to justify separation, was actually the greatest declaration of human unity ever written? The truth is simple. According to the scriptures, we are all one family. From one man, he made all nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth. Acts, chapter 17, verse 26. This verse is not a metaphor. It is a fact, a statement that every person, every race, every nation shares the same origin. One blood, one lineage, one humanity. Yet, for centuries, the world has tried to rewrite that truth, turning unity into division, family into strangers, and history into something unrecognizable. What if it had been told differently? Would we see the world the same way? History has often overlooked one truth. The Bible is an African story as much as it is a Middle Eastern one. From the beginning, African nations played a central role in the biblical narrative. Cush, a kingdom so powerful it once ruled Egypt and was praised for its strength. Mizraim, the founder of Egypt, one of the most advanced civilizations in human history. Put, a land of warriors whose armies shaped the great battles of the ancient world. Canaan, the land where prophecy, war, and divine intervention shaped the destiny of nations. These were not just side stories. They were the story. And yet, much of their influence has been ignored, minimized, or erased. But why? Imagine a world where children learn the full story of Africa's role in the Bible. Imagine a world where every civilization, not just Rome, not just Greece, not just Europe, was recognized for its contributions. Would we see the world the same way? Would we treat each other the same way? Would we recognize that no matter the color of our skin, the language we speak, or the land we come from, we are one? The Bible does not divide. It unites. And if we truly understood that, history and our future would look very different. The past is not just words on a page. It is who we are. And now, as we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, we must decide. Do we continue to believe the divisions created by men? Or do we embrace the truth written by God? Because in the end, the Bible tells one story. A story of people, all people, woven together in a divine plan. A plan that does not separate, but unites. Stay with us. The final chapter is near. Conclusion and call to action. History is more than just names and dates. It is who we are. From the sons of Noah to the mighty kingdoms of Africa, we have uncovered a truth often overlooked. A story not just of power, but of connection. We have seen how Cush rose to dominate the Nile, ruling even over Egypt. Mizraim built one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known. Put shaped the battlefield, its warriors serving the empires of the ancient world. Canaan stood at the crossroads of history, where faith and destiny collided. And through it all, one undeniable truth remained. We are all one people, from one origin, with one shared history. But the question is, what will we do with this knowledge? To know your history is to understand your place in the world. It is to recognize that Africa, the Middle East, and the Bible are inseparably linked. That the contributions of African civilizations were not just footnotes, but foundations. That the Bible was never about separation, but unity. And that our past is not just history. It is the key to our future. If you found this journey eye-opening, if it challenged what you thought you knew, if it inspired you to seek more, then don't let it end here. Subscribe, like, share, because the truth deserves to be heard. And together, we will rediscover history. This is just the beginning.